Hi, I'm Adam Katz for drawbacks.com as well as the Dog Trainer Marketing Group on Facebook. We run Google Ads for dog training business owners just like yourself. We've helped over 100 dog training business owners over the past several years grow their business and get desperate dog owners calling them each and every day, each and every week, each and every month. If that sounds interesting to you, check out dogtrainertoolbox.com. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a box that says Expert Google Ads Management for Dog Trainers Only. Click on that box. It has more information. You can read through it and schedule a free 30-minute phone consultation with me so that we can get on the horn and find out if what we're doing with Google Ads would be a good fit for helping you grow your dog training business. Also, let me get some house cleaning out of the way. Check out the Dog Trainer Marketing Group on Facebook. You'll be amongst over 2,700 professional dog training business owners, presumably just like yourself, swapping secrets, tips, and strategies on how they grow their dog training business, and it's 100% free to join the Dog Trainer Marketing Group. Now, let's get into it. This is part 2 of our series. In part 1, we covered, let me look at my notes here, can you make money as a professional dog trainer? We also looked at picking a market and picking a name for your dog training business. If you haven't seen that yet, go back. You can watch part 1 on my YouTube channel, Katz on Marketing, as well as the introduction to this series, which is a separate video. In this episode, again, looking at my cheat sheet here, we're going to talk about the importance of a demonstration dog, whether or not you should be looking at having a mobile business or a facility, and then also startup capital and how to create an offer and why that is probably one of the most important things you can do. Let's get into it. The demonstration dog. Why do you need one? Why do you need a flashy demonstration dog? You know, when I got started, I've owned 3 dog training businesses over the past 28 years in 2 different states, 3 different cities. And when I got started in the early to mid 90s, it was before YouTube, and the consciousness within the general public about what a trained dog can be was much lower. The standards were much lower than they are today. So you can go out with a dog that was just dump-de-dump-de-dump with a low tail carriage and just kind of slow, and tell him to lie down and he'd slowly lie down, and people would be impressed by that. And what's interesting about this industry is that on a one-on-one basis, if you encounter someone, you tell your dog to lie down and he stays down, they're super impressed. But when they get home and they watch videos online, or maybe they're doing research about you and comparing you to your competitor, how flashy and how energetic and happy looking your demonstration dog is matters. And this is something that really took me a long time to come to grips with, because I wanted to fight against it. I thought, you know, it doesn't really matter. It's all about them. It's not about you, et cetera, et cetera. But it really does. And especially if you're starting out with a new business, you're starting from scratch, which is what this series is about. Your demonstration dog can be one of your best forms of advertising. So what I look for when I'm picking a demonstration dog is I want a dog that's got a very bouncy, happy, outgoing look. You know, I want to see a high tail carriage. I want to see the ears perked up. I want to see just a dog that looks happy, that kind of has a strut, a dog that has some mojo. Now, you may already have a demonstration dog. You may already have a dog that's just kind of, you know, like your average dog or whatever. I would highly encourage you to find a very balanced, temperamented dog, a dog that can be very social. The breed is not as important as the personality. That being said, I don't want a breed that's going to scare people away. You know, your Rottweilers, your Pit Bulls, that kind of stuff. Have I used those as demonstration dogs in the past? Yes, they will work, but why go through the unnecessary hassles if you don't need to? You know, if you can get a nice fluffy golden retriever or a border collie, you know, go that route. And as a sidebar, I found that those breeds specifically are a lot easier to work with and a lot easier to live with than some of the super high drive Belgian Malinois or German Shepherds or Rotties, those types of things. But it really comes down more to personal preference. And the most important thing is that when you take that dog out and you work with that dog, the dog looks super happy. He just looks like, wow, this dog is just loving it. Because it doesn't matter what kind of tools you use or techniques or where you are. You just want a dog that's like got super engagement and is super just ready and happy, just loves working with you. Here's the reason why. If you have no money, if you're starting out from absolute scratch, and I'm going to get into, start up a grub stake in just a minute. But let's say you have no money and you're just bootstrapping your dog training business. Your demo dog, if you go out on a street corner and you have 10 or 15 different tricks you can have that dog do, you're going to be stopping traffic. People walking by are going to ask you for your business card. They're going to want to talk to you about your dog and who trained it and how they can get their dog trained the same way your dog is trained. It's a showstopper. That's what you want. You want people to stop and point and watch and say, wow. And if your dog is slow or sluggish, you know, kind of your typical basset hound, it makes it a little bit more difficult to do that. Additionally, if you happen to be out in public or at an event, Bark in the Park, for example, and there are other dog trainers there promoting their dog training business, wouldn't it be nice to have the best trained, flashiest dog at the event? You know, the dog that everybody points to and says, wow. Yeah, they may be more established over there. They may have more employees or all matching t-shirts and stuff. But man, you walk out there to do your little demonstration and your dog just kills it. That goes a long way. People will see that and they're going to want to work with you. So my advice, get a Border Collie, get a Golden Retriever, whatever breed that you like. Again, stay away from breeds that scare people because you don't want to be out there with your Pit Bull or your Rottweiler or your Presa Canario or your Cane Corso, whatever it is. And a dog that's just mean mugging everything. And people are like, screw that. I'm not even walking up to that guy. You want a demonstration dog that allows people to feel like you're approachable. They can come up and ask you questions about where you got the dog trained, are you a dog trainer, etc., etc. It also helps in the sales process. If you're doing in-person one-on-one pitches, consultations, evaluations, temperament tests. If you have your own dog there and you send them off to get on top of his crate and lie on the top of the crate and stay there even though there's other dogs doing stuff, or you send them to your place board and the dog just, you know, stays there and doesn't move and then comes to you when you call him and then you send him back to the place. That's very, very impressive to the general public. And the faster the dog does that, the more enthusiastic the dog is, the more energetic the dog is, the better it plays to the client. Should you start a mobile dog training business where you have a little van or a truck and you drive to their house, or maybe you meet them at a local park if the weather's good and you train there? Or should you look into getting a facility of your own so that people can come to you? Now, I've done this all different ways. I've done it where when I was in Southern California, the weather was great. We would meet them at a local park, and that was fantastic because my overhead was so low and I wasn't having to go into their house. I wasn't having to have them come to my house. So that was a huge, huge benefit. When I had my dog training company in Las Vegas, we would go to their house. We would just drive and show up at their house. And then when we had our business in Reno, Nevada, we had a little facility. We had a little 1,300 square foot facility, which cost us about, I want to say around $1,000 once you factored in the utilities and trash pickup and all the other stuff. My preference, having done it basically 2-3 different ways, is it is a lot easier, it is a lot more comfortable for your lifestyle if you have a facility. Here's why. If you schedule 3 consultations, you can knock those 3 consultations out in the morning before lunch, 9 o'clock, at 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock, or 10, 11, 12. You know, and get them out of the way in the morning, and then you still have the afternoon to either train with existing clients or go out and, you know, wrangle up business or take care of anything else that you need. If I had to give 3 demonstrations by driving to their house, that would take just the entire day. I mean, maybe I'd only be able to do 2 depending on how much traffic and what city I lived in. So there's really a huge benefit to starting up with a little facility. And it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't even have to necessarily be a place where you actually do the training at. It's just some place where they can come and you can meet them and do the consultation, evaluation, and temperament test. So if you have the startup capital, which is really important, we're going to get to that in the next segment here. But if you have the grub stake, I think it makes sense to do it. However, if you're a little bit more cautious, if you're a little bit more conservative, maybe you don't have as much startup capital, Certainly, you can make a good living having a mobile dog training business. In fact, I have clients that we run Google Ads for that's all they do, and they're well established. They've got 6 or 7 different dog trainers working for them, and they each have their own van, and the vans are wrapped, and they go out to the client's house and do the demo or the pitch in the client's house, and that works great for them. And it certainly cuts down on the amount of overhead. So there's kind of pros and cons to doing both, but in my personal experience, even though it was a little bit more expensive and it required a little bit more time investment in terms of having to clean the floors and the bathroom and having to pay for signage and stuff, but once you're set up in a little facility, it is much easier, and it's also a lot more profitable in the sense that when people are coming to you, when they have to jump through a couple of hurdles, meaning that when they set up that consultation, they have to take the dog and they got to get the dog ready to go. They got to put the collar and the leash on. They got to put him in the car. They got to drive down to your facility. They got to take the dog out. They got to come in and meet you. And they got to go through that hurdle of coming to meet you for the free consultation, if that's the way you've set things up. And in another segment, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of doing either a free consultation in person or a free phone consultation. It's another subject for another time. But if they are coming to you, they already demonstrate that they're a little bit more motivated to spend money on a dog training program. The other benefit is you're not having to compete with somebody in the background. If you're at their house, somebody else is watching TV, the kids are running in and out, you're a little bit more uncomfortable because you're on their territory rather than them being on your territory. It's always easiest to pitch somebody if they're coming to you rather than you going to them. You're a guest in their house versus them being a guest in your house. And what I found is you can kind of set things up so that there's a predictable pattern. When people come in, you direct them to the chairs over on the right and you sit down, and it's a little bit easier to calcify, if you will, your pitch. You're going to start seeing things that everybody does when they come in, and it's easier to set up that sales funnel or that sales process. Whereas if you go to their house, you're walking in and you don't know, where you're going to actually do the pitch. Are you going to do it in the kitchen, or are you going to do it in the living room? It's a little bit of a different thing. Best if you live in an area like Southern California with great weather and you can train outside and you can meet them at a local park. Even better, because that park will become your living room, so to speak. And you're kind of, even though you don't own the park, but you're kind of pitching them in an environment that you're comfortable with, and maybe they've never been to that park. It's just a kind of a little bit of an advantage having that facility. But for me, the biggest advantage to having the facility was that I could stack those consultations up one after the next, and end up really optimizing my time and making sure that I was making good use of my life and not wasting a bunch of time driving an hour this way, then driving an hour that way. So my advice is, if you have the grub stake, if you have the startup capital, get yourself a little facility. You can always grow later on into a bigger facility, but my advice, my personal experience, was that it was a lot easier to sell them. It was a lot easier to do the actual lessons because they're coming to you than it was having to drive all around town. Startup capital, what do you need? You can start this business up. You can just bootstrap it with basically a leash and a couple of collars. Everything you can put into a box in the back of your truck. You can get some magnetic signs, some business cards, and boom, you are in business. But I don't think you're absolutely setting yourself up for success doing it that way. You can do it. I've done it. My first dog training business, I hit the ground running. Right from day one, I was signing clients, and it ended up reinvesting in my business and growing my business. I mean, however you start up, you're always going to be reinvesting in growing your business. But it's a lot harder to do that if you have to make money. You have to sign a client this very month, and it's your first month in business. So what I recommend is, number one, have at least 6 months of living expenses, tucked away to the side at least. If you're super conservative, maybe even a year's worth of living expenses. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, 6 months gives you a little bit of breathing room so you don't have to stress about being in an absolute hurry to figure all this stuff out and get it up and running. So 6 months of living expenses set aside. In addition to that, I would plan on having $10,000 in the bank ready to invest in your business. You know, normal business owners, normal entrepreneurs, if they start up a little pizzeria or pretty much any type of business, a lot of times they'll need to have $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 just to get set up to, you know, rent the building and the restaurant supplies and all of that stuff. We're lucky because as dog trainers, we don't need to do all that. So setting aside an additional $10,000 over and above your 6 month, you know, living expenses, I think is certainly doable and will give you that breathing room to be able to figure out what you need to figure out if you're starting up from scratch. Again, it can be done just, you know, bootstrapping your way up with literally nothing. But if you're new to this industry, if you've never sold a dog training program, if you really don't know what you're doing, I would say plan on having $10,000 to invest. And I'm going to get into just a minute how I would invest, how I would use that money, but in addition to your 6 months of living expenses. So what are you going to invest in? What I would do for starters is you're going to need stuff like business cards. I do recommend a car wrap or a van wrap. And if you go to my channel at Katz on Marketing, I have a whole video that I went into real detail about how to do a van wrap. There's a right way and a wrong way. If you do it the wrong way, you're going to be spending way more money than you need to be spending. And it's not going to work as well either. So I would plan on spending about $600 to $1,000 more or less on graphics for your van, on lettering for your van. And again, there's a right way and a wrong way, so go ahead and watch that video. But there's going to be other things to spend money on. You know, once you've figured out your pitch, once you put together your programs, you know, once you've gone out and done all the warm marketing stuff, shaking hands and demonstrating your dog, you know, in front of grocery stores and on the street corner and all that kind of stuff, eventually you're going to get to a point where you kind of know what you're doing and you just need a consistent stream of desperate dog owners calling you. And in order to do that, you're going to have to promote your website. I forgot to mention, you're going to need a website. You probably want to learn how to write copy yourself, which I highly recommend that you do instead of hiring a copywriter. But once you learn how to write copy's the persuasive text that gets people from your website to pick up the phone and call you or to schedule a consultation with you. Once you've done that, you're gonna need to invest in a web designer. And I highly recommend that you don't do this yourself. I highly recommend that you get somebody, hire somebody, and there are people overseas who can do a pretty decent job designing your website for less than $1,000. But the point I'm making is that there are going to be expenses that come up. You're going to need insurance. You're going to need, you know, you may need to buy a new vehicle depending on what you're currently driving. You're going to need that van wrap. You're going to need business cards. You're going to need a phone number, et cetera, et cetera. There's ways to do this cheap. There's ways to do it for free even. But having that grub stake will allow you to invest in your business and get it off the ground and up and running much, much faster. So if it were me, I would plan on having 10,000, 20,000 is even better, but I know if I say 20 grand, I'm going to scare a lot of you guys off. Have 10 grand plus 6 months worth of living expenses set aside so that you can give yourself enough room, enough time to figure this stuff out. Because even though you watch the videos, even though you maybe have a mentor, even though you have a coach and everything else, it's still going to take some time to get it off the ground. Your offer. Let's talk about your offer. Your offer is probably one of the most important things, and you got to get this right. Now, a lot of you may be watching this thinking, you know, well, my offer is my programs, you know, the board and train or the private lessons, whatever it may be. That's not your offer. Your offer is something like this. Call now for a free consultation, evaluation, and temperament test. Normally $89. Yours free if you call now. So that's the offer. And that offer, your offer, what you're offering, and it doesn't have to be an in-person consultation. It could be a phone consultation, although I do think that in-person consultations work much better, free in-person consultations, especially when they're coming to you. another discussion for another time. But your offer is going to go on your business cards, it's going to go on your website, it's going to go on your van or car wrap or truck wrap. You're going to use it in your elevator pitch. You're going to use it just day to day, maybe on your t-shirts or your jackets. Your offer, again, your offer is not your programs. We're going to do another episode of this, probably the next episode, with Molly Rouse from makeitasadogtrainer.com, and she's going to talk about how to put together profitable programs so you're not selling individual packages of individual lessons, but rather programs, because you can sell programs for much more money than you can individual packages. So that's not what we're talking about right now, though. We're talking about your offer. So the offer is, what do you want them to do? When you meet somebody on the street, when somebody lands on your website, when somebody finds your business card at the veterinary clinic or at the groomer, you have to ask them to do something. You have to ask them to take action. So what we call in the copywriting circles, we call it a call to action. But your call to action is really, you're calling them to take action, to take advantage of your offer. And the offer that I've always used, and that many of my clients use, is call now for a free consultation, evaluation, and temperament test. And then we attach a monetary value to that, because if it's just automatically free, then it doesn't hold any value. But if it's normally $89, but if you act now, you get it for free. If you call today, you get it for free. You're saying, look, I've got something of value here. It's not just free, it's not just cheap, it's not just something that everybody will give you. I've got something of real value: a temperament test, an evaluation, a consultation. Maybe if you're doing phone consultations, maybe you have a 100-point checklist that you walk them through, or a 20-point checklist. Whatever it is, that's your offer. So the offer goes on everything that you're doing. It's at the very top of your sales funnel. It gets them in. It gets them in the door. And once you have them in the door, then the next step is the pitch. But the pitch is different from the offer. The offer just gets them into that funnel. So you need an offer, and the offer needs to be clear, and it has to be of something of value that they want, something that they immediately identify as being, I want this, and this is valuable. That's what your offer is. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm Adam Katz for DogTrainerToolbox.com. If you want a consistent stream of desperate dog owners calling you each and every day, each and every week, each and every month, people with money in hand who are specifically looking for the dog training services that you offer, get in touch with me. We run Google Ads for dog training business owners. We currently run Google Ads for, I think, close to 60 different dog training business owners, both here in North America as well as overseas. And we found something that works really, really well. It's a system, and it's 100% done for you. You don't need to do anything other than answer the phone, because your phone is going to be ringing with, like I mentioned, desperate dog owners looking for exactly the service that you have to offer. It works really, really well, and we're typically seeing a 7 to 9 times return on investment. If you'd like to learn more, head on over to DogTrainerToolbox.com and click on the box in the upper left-hand corner that says Expert Google Ads Management for Dog Trainers Only. Read through that page or watch the video, whatever's on that page, and if it makes sense, there's a little calendar app thing. You can pick a time and a date that works for you, and we'll get on the phone to find out if what we're doing with Google Ads would be a good fit for helping you get from where you are right now to where you've always dreamed of being, which is having a successful dog training business that allows you to help desperate dog owners with behavior problems with their dogs, or people who just want obedience training, whatever it is, help you save more dogs and have you in a position where you're making money and enjoying life because you have a successful dog training business.